and welcome to the program. I'm Yogita Lamai in Delhi. Inflation has been a big worry for India over the past year, but the figure has fallen sharply recently, believed to be thanks to lower food prices. Does that mean, though, that things have actually gotten cheaper for consumers here?
Tomatoes and onions, which had created havoc in the last year, we saw those prices moving up from something like 20 rupees a kilo to 80 rupees. Today they're going at around 40 rupees. So therefore we get this illusion that the prices have actually come down.
Also coming up on the program, brighter future. What's the best way for business to help charity? Commercial disadvantage. Are advertising laws holding back alcohol firms?
There was a brief history in Indian television history where the brand could actually physically go on air and actually communicate the beer. A lot of the new entrants don't enjoy that.
Uber and out. The global taxi business coming up against Indian authorities. And rickshaw revolution. Can technology change travel across Indian cities? But first, recent official figures showed that prices in India are rising at their slowest rate in 5 years. And that's been put down mainly to lower food costs. But are they actually coming down, and is it realistic to expect that to continue? I've been taking a look. Om Prakash Gupta has been selling vegetables in this market in western Mumbai for more than 2 decades. And so he can tell whether government data on the changing cost of living is reflected in real life. Overall, prices are going up much more slowly according to latest figures. But are things actually cheaper than expected for consumers?
At the moment, the supply of vegetables is good. There is no shortage, so prices have not shot up. But they are not low either. This is because even if we get vegetables cheaper from wholesalers, a lot of other costs are rising, like labor and transport. So we can't reduce prices for consumers.
Then why do the numbers show a big drop in inflation if ordinary people aren't seeing that much of a difference? Well, one point to make is that overall prices are still going up, just more slowly than before. And you need to remember that inflation data compares prices with how they were a year earlier. That means the latest figures are a comparison with late 2013, when the cost of food in the country had skyrocketed.
Food inflation today is down primarily on account of the high base effect, because we haven't really seen prices moderating to a very large extent. But to a certain extent, we could say that there are single commodities like tomatoes and onions, which had created havoc in the last year. We saw those prices moving up from something like 20 rupees a kilo to 80 rupees. Today they're going at around 40 rupees. So therefore we get this illusion that the prices have actually come down. But if I compare it with, say, what it was, say, a little more than a year back, we would see that there's still an increase in price.
And where they go from here will depend on how the rainy season that's just ended in most parts of India has affected agriculture. Farms in the country are heavily dependent on rainfall, and that's because there are very few irrigation facilities in India. Now, this year during the monsoon, the rain's either not been enough or hasn't come on time in many parts of the country. And that means the amount of food fields like these can produce has been impacted. Sham Pashte is harvesting rice, a staple in Indian meals. He grows the grain on 5 acres of land. He doesn't think he's going to make much of a profit this year because the yield has been low.
It didn't rain properly this year. My crop didn't get enough water, and some of it also got damaged because it rained a bit late. So compared to last year, the amount of rice produced could be about 25% lower.
The Ministry of Agriculture has already warned that there could be a shortage of cereals this year. They do have the option to import these grains so that there's enough supply and prices don't rise dramatically. What that means, though, is that even if inflation is falling right now, worries about it have not gone away. A look at the cost of living crisis in India there. Now, some of the country's richest business people are also its biggest philanthropists, giving money away to good causes. But as new laws come in forcing both public and private companies to give at least 2% of their profits to community projects, how can firms ensure that those funds are used wisely? And is it really all about the money? Shilpa Kannan reports from here in Delhi.
Spreading these flowers out in the sun is also helping spread a little joy. These workers take in tons of flower waste produced by temples and hotels in Delhi and turn it into organic, skin-friendly colors for Hindu festivals. And along the way, they're not just cutting waste, but creating livelihoods, both for themselves and others. For the organization running this operation, charity is not a solution. What they're looking for is a market to sell their goods.
The person has to learn the skills to run that business. That is what our aim is, to provide them with the opportunities of running the skill, getting those skills. And with the corporates, what we like to do is ask them to provide us help in the end solution. That is when we go into the market.
By turning waste into products consumers want, this charity, the Society for Child Development, has seen its business grow by 150% in the last year, largely because American retail giant Walmart took them on as a supplier. Walmart says it's not donating money, but skills and expertise to help build the business.
We actually bring in the capability of logistics, supply chain efficiency, and the processes, control, so the quality control is built in. We actually bring that in a very organized, efficient way to the small players like this. And I think that's what really makes the whole difference for them, from bringing them from where they are actually starting as a regional player to, say, pan-India, and hopefully at someday in a global supply chain.
Traditionally, charity has always been part of society here. But the bulk of this money is given outside temples and mosques, charity motivated largely by religious beliefs. But as the economy is growing, mindsets are changing too. And the business of giving is now about more than just money.
Sorting clothes to send to the victims of the recent floods in Jammu and Kashmir, the Gunj Centre is one group benefiting from the rise in charity. The government too has now made it mandatory for Indian companies to spend 2% of their profits on corporate social responsibility. And while this is a big step, groups like Gunj say corporates need to get to the root of India's problems to be more effective.
If you're talking about doing any kind of intervention, it's very important to invest out there also and then reach out to the people. But personally, I feel, and this is what we have seen in the last 15 years of our work, that we need to, if we talk about India, we need to focus more in rural India so that we can solve the problem then and there.
So how have businesses taken the news that they must pay more towards community projects? Is it really a fair thing to ask companies to do? I caught up with Roshni Nader Malhotra of HCL Corporation and trustee of Shiv Nadar Foundation.
I think it's going to be tougher for people who haven't been doing CSR that much before because, some of the things I think the Act could have spelt out is how do you actually go about doing this? Not just this is what you can spend on and this is what you can do, but perhaps a body that gives them that kind of guidance.
With the new government in place, they seem to have launched a lot of new campaigns like Toilets for All or Clean India campaign, where they are asking Indian industry to step in and help them. Has this really worked?
You have to make CSR and philanthropy almost sexy for people to be a part of. People sometimes, when they do good, it's not because they're being selfish, but you also want to be acknowledged for it. And if you can provide that platform, why not? You have a lot more. Today you have Clean India, you've got a lot of corporates as well as Bollywood stars coming in. But, everything requires that movement. It's important to provide that platform for people to be a part of it.
Roshni Nadar Malhotra speaking to Shilpa Kannan there. Now, when it comes to beer, Indians like it strong. The most popular choices have alcohol levels between 6 and 8%. And international brewers have launched powerful drinks to compete with local favorites. In the latest of our series looking at Indian brands, Simon Atkinson finds out more about a local beer that's fighting off that overseas competition.
It's one of India's best-selling beers. Across the country, dozens of these bottles are drunk every second, and most of it's brewed here in the rural northern state of Haryana that's still the brand's heartland. Haywood's 5000 was built on the image of a strong beer for the hard-working and perhaps hard-drinking man. So visitors to this upmarket Goa guest house might be a bit surprised to find it on the menu, until they discover there's a family connection.
My grandfather first came to Calcutta in 1907 to join a maternal uncle who had a chemical works, and he very soon turned it into the Bengal distilleries, which made gin, whiskey and vodka, among other things. It all went very well until about the 50s, when he was about to retire, and he and my father were worried about prohibition wiping them out. So they sold then to Shaw Wallace, which my father continued to work for the next 30 years. Towards the end of that time, they started their own lager, which soon became Haywood's lager, named really because of the success of the very cheap gin they had been producing for years. The target market was very similar.
Since 2003, Haywood's 5000's been owned by drinks giant SAB Miller. It also makes global beers like Peroni and Foster's for the Indian market, but this is its main Indian brand. Today, it says, the rural working class image has been shaken off. More and more of its sales are in India's cities. But restrictive advertising laws mean all drinks firms have their work cut out trying to win new customers. This is one recent Haywood's 5000 TV commercial, and you might spot there's something missing. There's no beer to be seen. But it hasn't always been like this.
There was a brief history in Indian television history where the brand could actually physically go on air and actually communicate the beer. And so we had the benefit of that era. Of course, today it's a dark market, and a lot of the new entrants don't enjoy that. But I think, so that's something which has, I think, kind of helped in building awareness for Haywood's 5000.
India's drink industry's never been under so much scrutiny. Fears about the harm alcohol causes prompted the state of Kerala recently to try and ban it altogether. But while about 85% of India's beer sales are classed as strong beer, SAB Miller says its products aren't the problem.
It is partly manufacturers' definitions and descriptions, really. I wouldn't deny that beer is not to be accounted within alcohol, because it is a product with an alcohol content in it. But having said that, it is, in comparison to spirits, a very, very low alcohol product. We equally have brands, very successful brands, which are by definition called the mild beers. It's very important as a company to put the entire portfolio out there to play and let the consumer make the choice.
Brewing's been around for centuries. It's a sector which keeps on moving. And while younger customers are drawn to trendy, top-end international brands, in a country with plenty of tradition, a beer with a bit of legacy and heritage remains the toast of the industry.
Simon Atkinson reporting there. Right, it's time now for us to take a short break. When we come back, revamping rickshaws, how technology is making it easier to get around Indian cities. Welcome back to the program. I'm Yogita Lamai in Delhi. Now, around the world, smartphones are changing the way many people get taxis, using apps to make bookings rather than calling or hailing a cab on the street. The services identify the nearest available driver and allocate the job. Customers say it's convenient and often cheaper than before. But some of these services have proved controversial. From New York and Washington to London and Berlin, there have been protests against one particular company, Uber, usually led by taxi drivers who claim they are facing unfair competition, often arguing that the firm doesn't have to meet the same regulations. In India, Uber is under pressure from two fronts. The government is looking into whether it should be paying a service tax, tricky as it has no physical office here, And separately, the country's central bank says Uber's payment system, where the cost of a journey is deducted automatically from a customer's bank account, is not valid in India. And the firm's been told to find an alternative or be shut down, something Uber co-founder Travis Kalanick told the BBC's Rory Catlin-Jones that the firm was looking to address.
There are rules around, all kinds of different types of businesses, whether it be banking, insurance, transportation, that we have to look at and follow in different jurisdictions, countries, cities around the world. We feel we're doing things properly in India, but we get complaints or letters from different governments all the time. In fact, we've gotten a ton of cease and desists from cities that we don't operate in, right? So complaints from incumbents can often happen. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing something wrong. We have to look at that complaint, and if there's something we need to address to make things better, we will. But quite often, it can be, the result of pressure from an incumbent to try to slow down progress.
Indian regulators can be pretty determined, can, really lay down the law to overseas companies. Is there a chance that you might eventually just give up and say, right, we're done, we can't do it, we can't operate in India?
Yeah, look, we're operating in, I think, over 10 cities right now in India, and the business is growing quite rapidly. I think we're on the right side of things, and I think we're going to obviously sit down with the folks at the banks in India and make sure that we're doing the right thing. We think we are, but if we need to make a few tweaks, we will. But at the end of the day, should somebody be able to push a button, get a ride, and pay automatically? We think so, and we think we're following the rules as is. But again, if there are tweaks to be made, and we need to hear some folks out. We're up for that.
Uber's co-founder Travis Kalanick speaking to Rory Catlin-Jones there. But every day, millions of people wanting to get around Indian cities don't turn to taxis, but instead to auto rickshaws. These three-wheeler vehicles that are sometimes also called tuk-tuks. Now, inspired by the success of firms like Uber and other Indian equivalents, a slew of firms are trying to find ways to bring mobile phone technology to the rickshaw experience. David Reed starts his report here in Delhi.
Catching an auto rickshaw can be a pain for Indian commuters. If you can't find one where they're swarming, you're often forced to wait and hope for a chance encounter. Not great in the summer heat, the monsoon rain, or if you're just in a rush. But now in several cities across India, there's a new way to hail an auto, as they're called locally, and it's as simple as reaching for your phone. In Delhi, Pucho is an app developed by the city's transport department to smooth commuters' way to work and help rickshaw drivers potentially earn more money. It pinpoints nearby rickshaws and displays them for you on Google Maps. Then just click on the icon to connect straight to a free driver. Auto, tin sa. If your Hindi's as bad as mine, then you might just want to text them where you are. Well, drivers in Mumbai are more than happy to use the meter. Drivers elsewhere, like here in Delhi, are less keen. This application, however, helps you with haggling. It has a fare calculator, so you roughly know what you should be paying. This sort of transparency might not suit all drivers. However, the drivers I spoke to, those who had heard of Pucho, felt that it was good for business.
Someone is call me, I will go anywhere and pick up you and not look around in too much for alone in customer on the street.
We don't have to look for our passengers. Wherever we are, they contact us or call us on the phone.
Passengers do not haggle when giving us the money, and we earn comfortably.
Nobody has ever called me or complained. It is of no benefit to me.
This application, I think, is a better business for India and many people to like tip to rent rickshaw and taxi.
The story's similar further south in Bangalore. Drivers here are signing up to a private initiative, Mgadi, because they're tired of wasting precious fuel looking for customers. Profit margins are so tight, most drivers are lucky to take home between 700 to 800 rupees. That's about $12. And the battle to make a living means drivers have become very particular about the fares they pick up. If they don't think they'll find another job where they drop you off, they might refuse to take you, or may insist on a fixed fare well above what the meter would rack up. That's because otherwise they make a loss. Mgadi says its alternative keeps everyone happy. For a charge of 5 rupees flat fee per ride, it feeds drivers a steady stream of customers on one condition: they use their meter.
The system knows that there is a trip from that point. It tries to assign the trip to the driver. So we end up giving continuous trips to drivers. So drivers will not spend time wasting gas. So they don't ask extra money from the customers.
A waiting time of 5 to 10 minutes.
Mgadi is a social enterprise. At the moment, it makes no profit. Yes, drivers earn more, but there are other benefits. Drivers and rides are registered and rated. Everyone knows who everyone is. Great for safety. What's more, passengers can have their journey tracked, which is especially popular with female passengers.
Just the fact that, somebody is taking an Mgadi trip where the driver's name, identification and other details like phone number, vehicle and all that is known, that itself adds to a lot of comfort feeling, safe feeling. And then on top of that, you add other things that will come on, as in tracking the location constantly. Then it adds a whole lot of comfort to the commuter as well as the commuter's family.
In a country obsessed by smartphones and technology, and where getting around cities can be a hassle, expect to see more firms fighting to get into this market. The ones that succeed long term will be those raising the status and incomes of drivers, while making rides for passengers cheaper and safer too.
David Reed reporting there. Well, that's about all we've got time for. Next week, we'll be bringing you all the action from the India Summit of the World Economic Forum and asking if the new government's promises of turning India's economy around and making it an easier place to do business are actually convincing investors, both at home and abroad. Until then, you can check out all the latest business news on our website, bbc.com/business. And for more from here in India, go to bbc.com/India. I'm Yogita Lamai in Delhi, and from everyone on the team, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.